Good morning. Hi. He's sitting so pretty. Waiting for your food. Some medicine. Good job, Kiwi. Sit. Good Jory. You're such a good girl. Let's get your food. We'll go. Morning. So as you saw, I just got in from doing morning chores. I'm running a little behind today. Our kids had a 2-hour snow delay for school, but it was good. We all needed a little bit of extra sleep. We are still adjusting being back to school after Christmas break. But today is dough day. I have my first bake sale of 2025 for our farm stand. My sourdough starter was fed yesterday and it was to this line, and over the night it has grown and it is fully ready to be baked with now. So today, because I am planning on making about 24 loaves of sourdough bread, I know that I need at least 2,200 grams of sourdough starter to make that amount of bread. And so yesterday I fed about 400 grams of my discard. I fed it 1,000 grams of water and 1,000 grams of all-purpose unbleached flour, because I know that will guarantee that I have at least 2,400 grams of starter, and I'll be able to bake all the things I need to bake today. Now that my coffee is ready, it is time for me to pack up the kids and take them to school. When I get back, I'm gonna tackle the dishes and my sink, make sure my kitchen is fully cleaned, and we will start mixing up the dough. Also, I will be changing and getting myself ready for the day too. So I will see you guys in a little bit. Dishes are done. I still have to clean the floors and counters off and make sure that my kitchen is spotless and ready for me to bake. Once I get my floors and counters spotless, I will be bringing out my massive mixer that allows me to mix 20 loaves of sourdough bread all at one time. I was very fortunate and I got this mixer from a family friend that had a business that they were liquidating. It was actually the first big investment. I am so happy I went with the mixer first, because that is the biggest area that I was getting burnt out on. I'm home all the time, so long bake days isn't as hard for me, and I'm also very fortunate that my husband was able to change my kitchen to where I have multiple ovens. My home is only 1,000 square foot, so bringing in a big bread oven, that would just be really hard for us. Kitchen is clean and ready to get baking. It's noon, which is 2 hours behind what I was hoping for today before I knew about the snow day with my kids. Our starter though is still good to go. It has been about 14 hours since I fed this. I fed it around 10 p.m. last night, and you can see it is still super happy, and the timing is still okay despite being 2 hours behind. So I'm grabbing my mixer and all the flour and we'll get this going. being married to an electrician really has so many benefits when it comes to owning my own small business, especially when it comes to big machinery like this, because he's gonna laugh at me because I don't even know the terminology, but it's this kind of plug. It is where it has like one that's to the side, so you have to have special outlets. Don't know much about it, but I do know that this works, so we're gonna go ahead and plug it in the wall and get everything going. The very first thing I'm gonna whip up together is 20 loaves of white sourdough bread. My basic classic white sourdough loaf of bread calls for 650 grams of water, 950 grams of flour, 22 grams of salt, and 200 grams of sourdough starter. Now that is a double batch for 2 loaves. So to make 20, all I have to do is multiply by 10. However, I have found with using a mixture, I go up a little bit more on my flour. What I will be adding into this mixer is 6,500 grams of water. Then I'll put in 2,000 grams of my sourdough starter, followed by 10,000 grams of flour. For the salt, I'll be doing 220 grams of salt. And after everything is added and mixed, we let this sit for 1 hour, and I keep it in the mixer for that hour sitting. I just make sure to cover. Now, obviously, I'm not able to get this big bowl onto a scale, so I pre-measure everything on my kitchen scale in these totes. Also, I do want to say that city water is not good for sourdough. I am very fortunate and I live in the country. We have a well and we have an artesian well. We live in Springfield Township and we're right off of Lake Michigan on the southern shore. Our water is so good. I'm so thankful. It is such a blessing. Also don't have a water bill. So there are sometimes you'll see me washing dishes and I'm not as mindful of turning the water off right away. And I apologize. That is a bad habit from not having to worry about water bills and also a well drying out. So I am going to say that because there are some things I know I do that I don't even realize is upsetting to people, but I have lived in areas where our wells have dried out, and I do know that this is very much a luxury. But if you are going to be baking sourdough bread, you want to make sure that you do not use city water, you do not use distilled water. You want like a good filtered water that you could buy at a store, just drinking water. Now using the same bin that we weighed out our water in, I'm going to add in our sourdough starter. You can see it is nice and bubbly and happy, ready to be baked with. 1,000. $2,029 grams, and then we should have about 400 left over. Let's see what we got. 420 grams is what's left in this container, which that is the perfect amount for me to make 4 loaves of our whole wheat bread. But this batch that I'm whipping up for the 20 is all going to be our classic white sourdough. That's in. I'm gonna go ahead and mix it up. Make sure that there's no big chunks left before I add the salt. Okay, looks good. $220. Gonna have to refill our sea salt. We're getting pretty low. And I just mix it up. It seems to like go straight to the bottom, so I just mix it for a good 30 seconds or so. For the flour, I am bringing out our 8-quart Campo tote to make it go a little bit faster. Now for our flour, you're gonna see me whipping out my chair, and that is because in our kitchen, we have shelves up very high, and that is where I store all of our business baking needs. Since this is still my home kitchen, I want my kids to feel comfortable and be able to bake something up if they want or experiment with things, but I also don't want to spread germs. And as you guys know, little kids are always carrying around all the nasty germs. So we decided that even though it is a little bit annoying pulling out a chair and climbing up to get the supplies, it is still a really nice way that we can keep it safe out of the reach of the kids. Again, just living in a small place, this is just another way that we have made having a micro bakery work for us. This is our bread flour. I want at least 2,000 grams to be bread flour. The rest can be all-purpose, but we're just going to use whatever. So that was 2,351 grams. Now I'm going to switch to all-purpose. Make sure that this is locked. And this mixer will not work unless you pull the cage down. To go around it to try and eliminate some of the flour mess that I know is just going to happen. So as you can see, nothing really starts fluffing out yet. I'll get even closer. There you go, you can see it starts poofing out. So I try to avoid that with my towel. Okay. Pretty good. Now that this is all mixed, I'm going to let this sit for 1 hour. I'm going to mix up my whole wheat bread in a little tub by hand, and then after an hour I will transfer it to a tote and begin our stretch and folds. I do anywhere from 3 to 4 sets of stretch and folds before I let it go ahead and just proof, and then I will eventually be ready to shape. I have a foldable stainless steel table that I pull out and use to keep my totes on and also do my shaping when it's time. I have this stored in the same closet with the mixer. This used to be my linen closet, and we are still in the middle of getting it organized. I still want to paint it and do a few more things to make it more functional for me, but it has been incredible. This was a project we did this summer and I absolutely love it. The wood, it is actual barn wood from an old dairy barn in our area over in Amish country. Alex found it on Facebook Marketplace. We brought it home, sanded it down, and put it here, and I love it because this actually used to be a wood paneling wall, and it did not bring me joy. Let's just say that. So Alex actually made this sliding barn door all by himself with no plans. He is just such a talented man. It's really been a joy creating this space to be a place I love to be since I am home all the time. That really was important to me to make it a beautiful place. So now that we have transferred the dough into the tote, it's time for our first set of stretch and folds. It's very important that you get your hands a little bit wet. And obviously that they are really clean, but with a tote this big, you kind of just pick up give it a wiggle, and fold it in on top of itself. And I do this roughly about 30 minutes apart, 3 to 4 times. It's just after 2:30. I have to get my kids at 3 o'clock. So most likely it'll be closer to 45 minutes between the next set of stretch and folds, but you're just trying to make sure everything is nice and mixed together. But it is a little bit silly with this large amount. Then I always make sure to cover the dough. I'm gonna wash my hands, and then I will be doing the same with our whole wheat bread. Now the whole wheat bread, because this is only 4 loaves compared to that 20, is a lot easier to really get good stretch and folds. Okay, so that is going to sit for 45 minutes. So once I get home from school, I'll do another 2 to 3 sets of stretch and folds before I let it sit here on this table, where I will let it have its first bulk proofing on the table before shaping it later tonight, which is where I will come back and start picking up the filming. I'll see you guys in a couple hours. It's just before 9 o'clock at night and I'm getting the kids ready for bed. And of course, my bread is looking ready to be shaped. I'm hoping I can push it off just a little bit longer and not have it overproof. But this is how you know it's ready. You can see it has grown, it is jiggly and fluffy. This is definitely ready for me to shape into bread. So while I was waiting for the bread to proof, I took care of evening chores, made dinner. Alex's sister came over and we did tax stuff for the business. So I am feeling very tired, very drained. But a few months ago though, I started using a website called Hot Plate, and it has really made my life so much easier. So I have printed out my ticket here for all of the bread orders that I have placed. 9 orders of our 8-pack cookies, which I've already made the dough and put that in the fridge. I like for my dough to rest in the refrigerator for 24 hours. I feel like it gives my cookies a really great texture and has them bake more uniformly. But what I do, I know I have 24 loaves of bread in here. And so I just doubled everything. So I will be shaping up 2 garlic parmesans, 2 olive and herbs, 2 whole wheats, 6 jalapeno cheddars, and then I will be making a total of 12 classic white sourdough breads. There might be some extra dough left, and if there is, there usually is. I make something delicious for me and Alex to enjoy tomorrow for dinner. But that's kind of how I do things. I try to double, especially for the specialty loaves, because I want to ensure that if something goes wrong, I get distracted and I burn a variety, that I always have a backup. So I try, if I'm able to, that's what I like to do. Just gives myself a little insurance policy. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these all shaped up. I've already pre-cut my cheese and have my jalapenos and olives measured and ready to go. But all of the breads I weigh out to 900 grams with my kitchen scale. I actually have a plate on the kitchen scale that I use to keep the dough just from making the scale all nasty. I have a new scale in my Amazon cart, and I'm really looking forward to being able to splurge and purchase that, but I'm kind of trying to wait. I've made a couple other investments in the business this month already, and so I try to space those out. But for right now, the one I have works, and so we're just gonna stick with that. But I'm gonna get to it. It is not unusual though for my kids to fall asleep while I am shaping my bread. It just, life always gets in the way. Like today, it was a 2-hour snow delay, and so I was just behind. This always seems to be the case, but I do so appreciate that I have a way to make income for my family that allows me to be home so that I can still be working and get my kids to bed and be here if they need me. So I have our 12 classic white breads all ready to go and can be placed in their Bantam baskets. Now what I have found is the easiest for making this large amount of bread is to use these disposable hair nets. It also guarantees like cleanliness and everything staying nice and sterile for when you're cooking for other people. So I just take a hairnet and put it on these baskets like this. And I do a final shape of the bread and plop it in. And I use a second hairnet to cover the top. And then I will put this in our refrigerator that we have in the garage. The first two things that we invested in for my micro bakery is the large mixer that you saw and a commercial refrigerator, because all of these breads will have a second proof overnight in the refrigerator. So I'm just gonna put this to the side now though, while I get the rest of these in the baskets. Before I started using the hairnets, I would use parchment paper and plastic wrap with rubber bands. So I would put parchment paper down in the baskets first, place the dough, and then cover with plastic wrap and a rubber band. And I'll still do that if I forget to order these hairnets, but this saves so much time. And it really is not that big of a cost expense. The kids are all in bed, so I have to be a little bit quiet. But I separated out the last 8 loaves that are gonna be our specialty loaves. So now I'm just flattening these 2. I believe the correct term is laminating the dough. These are going to be our garlic and Parmesan, and these 6 will be our jalapeno cheddar. So with the garlic and Parmesan, put just a little bit of this like herbs and spices first, not much, just a tiny bit. Then I used minced garlic. I also do a garlic powder and parsley on the top with more Parmesan cheese before baking. So I add it to the Banton basket before I add the dough so that it'll be on the top. Now for the Parmesan. Once that's added, I will roll the dough. 11 p.m. I'm exhausted, but I have my whole wheat bread that I need to shape, and then I can go to sleep. So I just cleaned my table off and I'm ready to quickly shape up. I am going to make 2 that are just regular plain whole wheat sourdough loaves, and then the other 2 I will be doing are olive and herbs. A 100 grams of bread left over. I'm actually currently baking up some of my leftover classic white dough. I added a string cheese and some ham with garlic and seasoning, and that's baking right now. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this in the oven too, because I think those are about done. Oh yeah, this smells amazing. Just divide these up evenly. I did it. All of our bread is tucked into the refrigerator. So now it is time for me to have a bedtime snack. I'm exhausted, but more hungry than tired. Look at how delicious. Good night, you guys. I'll see you tomorrow. It's Friday night, and I am nearly done baking all of the sourdough bread. I still have one last batch in my wall oven. So when we bought the house, it had a really old wall unit oven, and actually when I started baking sourdough bread, only the bottom section here of our original oven worked, and so I was only baking 2 loaves of sourdough bread at a time. The beginning of 2024, Alex installed this new oven, and it was life-changing. I was able to bake 4 loaves of sourdough bread at one time. A few months ago, Alex changed all the wiring in the house so that we could have a second oven brought into our house, which is amazing. Although I would love to have a bread oven, I do not know where that would fit in our home, and it's really important to me that my house feels very homey, that my kids grow up not feeling like they lived in a small business like bakery. So everything I do, I try to be mindful of it still feeling very homey, but being very practical. So I was using the bigger oven to bake 4 loaves at a time, and I baked them in tin pans. I saw this from Leaf and Loaf on Instagram. I will tag her in the description. She teaches a lot of small bakers how you can make sourdough bread and make your own very inexpensive Dutch oven, and this allows you to bake a lot more bread at one time. But currently that oven is cooling down, and I'm getting ready to bring out our cookie dough and start baking cookies. Got these huge cookie sheets. It's where I can bake, don't remember the exact number of cookies I can bake at one time, but it's quite a bit. So I'll start that. I was thinking about doing blueberry muffins, but I'm getting really tired. I did not post blueberry muffins on pre-orders, so I don't have to make muffins. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna call it quits. gonna get these cookies baked up and get everything in their packages and labeled, and then call it quits for tonight. I will pick you guys up tomorrow when I have everything set and ready to go down to the farm stand, and I'll show you what it looks like. So I will see you guys tomorrow. It is bake sale morning. I have laid out on top of the table all of the items that are unclaimed and going to be able to be purchased first come, first served. All of these brown bags are filled with orders. So I have a ticket printed out from Hot Plate, and then I also have their name. And something I try to be really mindful about is if there is more than one bag, to make sure I say bag 1 of 2. And then the second bag here, I have labeled bag number 2. Despite doing that, every once in a while, a customer will still only grab 1 bag. And so I always try to remind them, hey, make sure you get all of your stuff. But I'm going to post pictures of the available items on our Facebook page and just kind of let people know what they can expect if they did not get an order placed in advance. We had a little bit of a rough morning. The tent we typically use on bad weather days to protect the farm stand and the bakery stand, it blew away last night. We did have it staked down, but the intensity of the winds was no match for it. So that is unfortunate. I'm gonna wing it though and figure out how to get everything to fit on just the farm stand. So I'm actually gonna go out here pretty soon and start rearranging handcrafted items, seeing what I can do and getting stuff set up. On our way down to the farm stand now with all of our handcrafted items, taking the road because it is very slushy and nasty. Alex is getting straw to put down because you can see it's really icy. We don't want anyone getting hurt by slipping. So hopefully this will help get some traction for people. Our simmer pots are set up here. I'm about ready to go in and get all the baked items and put it in this section. I would have put them on the bakery stand, but because of the tent, we're just going to make do with this area, and I think we'll be fine. We have our cookies in this tote because the squirrels are so bad. They'll eat anything that's sweet. We always have to be mindful of them. All of our pre-order bags though are going on this back shelf. And this is all of our available bread. I might actually use this area too for the pre-orders. And then I'll get the candles on the back shelf. And I think we should be pretty good. We're all done. Alex is walking the wagon back and the totes. We have all of our pre-orders, our cookies with our cookie recipe that we give away for free. That way when this sells out, they open it, they can at least take the recipe home. We have soap holders and soap bags there. Information about our next bake sales, stickers, our candles, dehydrated sourdough starter, pancake mixes, and then all of our soaps. Typically we don't have these baskets with the mini bars and $3 soap samples in these baskets, and we have our large bars spread out and displayed better, but we are working with what we have today. Our firewood is down at the bottom, and you can see we have our price board here up top. It is so cold. I already showed you the simmer pots. We don't have any eggs right now available, so we have our red light switched on, which customers know that when the red light is on, that means we have no eggs. I'm gonna go ahead and flip our sign to open because we are ready for customers. It is 3:30 p.m. and it is time time to close up. The temperature is dropping fast. It's freezing. All of our orders have been picked up. We were left with 2 packs of cookies and 5 loaves of bread. Looks like quite a few peppermint soaps were sold. Well, everything is all packed and ready to go back inside. Our next bake sale will be a Valentine's Day bake sale in February. I will be sure to bring you all along with me then. If you guys have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll try to address them. And that's it though. I hope you guys all have a great day. Bye.